So let me introduce KC. If he's a member of our Aging Information Subcommittee with the NCRO, and he has organized several webinars and was very instrumental on today's. Has over 40 years of combined U.S. auto industry experience at Ford and Chrysler, and then consulted for Michigan Economic Development Corporation and Tata Technologies. In 2015, Casey left his professional career to become a full-time care partner for his wife, Sumi, who was diagnosed with the younger onset of Alzheimer's disease at the age of 59 in 2013. Sumi is being cared for at their home in Rochester Hills. Casey has a Master's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from the University of California, Berkeley, and a Bachelor's of Science degree in Mechanical Engineering from Welshan College of Engineering in India. Let me present Casey Mehta, and Sam, if you could make him presenter.
Thank you, Dale.
Very good. You can show your screen, Casey, and we're ready to go.
Okay, can you see my screen? Okay, I'm going to talk about the grieving process. Cynthia, thank you for the wonderful presentation. And what I'm going to be describing in my presentation is many of the items you had mentioned, and in our journey, how I had to go through the grieving process. So first of all, let me acknowledge some of the peoples who deeply care for me and Sumi. Peggy is Sumi's caregiver for the last 4 years. Selena is for the last 2 years. And my sister who visited us from India for the 6 months a few years back. And without that professional care and love, Sumi's journey would be much different. So I'm going to review the table of contents, and I have 8 sections. And I'm going to start with section 5, 6, 7, and 8, describe them. I'm going to be describing charting our Alzheimer's journey. I'm an engineer, and engineer, you give any problem and we would like to have a process. Section 6 is emotional curve, what I went through. In section 7, I'm going to talk about care partnering knowledge and closing thoughts. But before I do that, in section 1 through 4, I'm going to set the stage for section 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to introduce myself, describe what is dementia, 3 stages of dementias, and emotional roller coaster we went through. And a couple of terms to know. A person with the disease is someone like my wife Sumi, who has Alzheimer's disease. Many times people call them patient, but I would like to call them person with the disease. And a care partner who's a caregiver, but who's caregiving for his spouse, his or her spouse. So as an introduction, as Dale mentioned, in 2013, at the age of 59, my wife Sumi was diagnosed with a younger onset of Alzheimer's disease. In USA, there are about 6 million plus people with the disease, and about 5%, about 300,000 of them, they have what they call younger onset. And younger onset is anyone getting before the age of 65. I had been happily married to Sumi for more than 40 years, but I had done little caregiving, had no experience of caregiving. I hoped for a misdiagnosis. Then I got educated, read all the books I could on Alzheimer's disease. At first, I wanted to change Sumi's behavior. Then I realized I needed to change myself. One second, okay. Then I realized that I needed to change myself by taming my alpha male tendencies to care for her. Eventually, I turned to soul searching and reflection to get us through both initial years of the journey. Care partnering to me is like attempting to scale a challenging mountain. In our 8.5 years of journey, I happened to be at a greater height on the mountain. I have stumbled many times and have learned few things from other caregivers who are at even greater heights than I am. At the same time, I have shared my knowledge with other caregivers who are in the early stages of their journey at a lesser height. I first wrote about our disease, Sumi's disease, in 2015, and I continue to write as my journey with Sumi with three main objectives: to increase the awareness of Alzheimer's disease, fight the stigma. This disease is very stigmatic in many countries, and they continue to be very stigmatic. Share my thoughts and feelings. It allows me to channel my feelings, document changes, and share a glimpse into our lives. Let my writing be a barometer of my health. A Stanford study was done some years ago, and they have very grim statistics that 40% of caregivers, they die before the person they are caring for. So it is very important that my health, my self-care is that I have to keep in mind. And as you know, in the previous presentation, Cynthia mentioned very well about what the importance of self-care. I write in the moment to help process my emotions. I find it therapeutic. From my writing, I develop standalone essays. Our Alzheimer's Journey grieving process is one of the 25 essays I have written, and my essays can be read on my website, myjourneywithsumi.com. What is dementia? Dementia is a serious lot of cognitive functions to perform daily tasks. It causes changes in memory, language, executive functions like planning, organizing, and attention, visual and spatial skills, judgment, reasoning, personality, and mood swings. So dementia and flower metaphor. Like under the umbrella of flowers, you have pansies, tulips, roses, daisies, mumps, and so on. So under the umbrella of dementia, you have brain tumor, vascular dementia, Alzheimer's disease, Lewy body disease, frontotemporal disease. Now, Alzheimer's disease is most prevalent. About 60% of dementia is Alzheimer's. It is a progressive disease with no cure, and eventually it is fatal. So, three stages of dementia. Three stages of Alzheimer's disease. Now, the stage one, which normally goes from 0 to 2 years, is early stage. In this stage, there are problems with coming with the right words or names, trouble remembering names when introduced to new people, challenges in performing tasks, forgetting material that one has just read, losing or misplacing valuable objects, and trouble with planning or organizing. In the middle stage, which could be from 2 to 7 years, the stage one continues and there are more things added, forgetting events or about one's own personal history, feeling moody or withdrawn, unable to recall their own address or telephone numbers, confusion about the day or where they are, the need to help for choosing proper clothing for the seasons or the occasions, and trouble controlling bladder or bowels. Now, all the items highlighted in yellow, Sumi exhibits those behavior. Not all of them, but most of them from stage, early stage and the middle stage. The late stage, which is 7 to 10 years, Sumi is in the late stage. By the way, I have chosen 10 years as of the three stages. If the life expectancy of a person with the disease is less than 10 years, then these three stages would be compressed, or vice versa, they will be expanded. So Sumi is not able to communicate her needs and discomfort and pain. So what happens is, when that happens, I have to become a super detective. I have to read her body language. I have to become a right brainer rather than relying on my logical power. I have to rely on my intuitions. And one of the example I like to give is, before Sumi's disease, when she was sleeping, she would snore and that would annoy me. But after the disease, in this current stage, when she snores, that's a delight. It's a music to my ear because I know she's sound asleep and I can resort to my own self-care or my own time. She requires round-the-clock assistance with all the activities of daily living. She has lost awareness of recent experience as well as her surrounding. But she's physically very fit. She walks about 4 or 5 hours in the evening. She's not on any medications. She has very nutritious diet. She has trouble controlling her bladder and bowel movement. So I have to monitor her BM. So I prepared a BM chart in the bathroom. And whenever we change Sumi or I change Sumi, of course, it's a very smelly. And I think that I'm getting my free COVID test because I know that my sense of smell is still very active. Emotional roller coaster. So in this disease, Cynthia mentioned about person dying, but even there are, a situation like mine where person is still alive, but, person loses all the mental faculty. So you go through a lot of emotional grief, and it could be confusion, anxiety, panic, depression, frustrations, fear, denial, anger. So all those emotions. There was a psychiatrist called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and when person is about to die or actively dying, they go through the loved one goes through the 4 phases: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I'm going to talk more about it. And what I'm going to do is all this bundle of mixed emotions were present in us throughout our journey. And I will unbundle these emotions, showing how I have been riding this emotional roller coaster. And to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, I like this particular acronym, SARA, SARA, for shock, anger, reflection, and acceptance. So charting for Alzheimer's journey, as I mentioned, being an engineer, I like to chart. So in the next few slides, I will review in the chart format the emotional progression of our journey over 8.5 years. So this is the pre-diagnosis phase. Now I'm going to show my cursor. So the green vertical line is the time of diagnosis in April 2013. So there are usually 1 to 3 years or more of symptoms present before the diagnosis. I have included those years on the left as pre-diagnosis phase. So this is -3 years. So Sumi was showing symptoms at least about 3 years before we went to see the neurologist in April 2013. And what happens is there is a trigger point. In her case, she got lost going to a friend's place. She was driving by herself and she came home about after 5 hours. So that was a trigger point. We decided to go and see the neurologist. So on the post-diagnosis phase, the average life expectancy of the person with the disease is 8 to 10 years. However, in some cases, it can be as short as 3 years or as long as 20, depending on the various factors, such as age at the time of diagnosis, gender, other health problems, severity of symptoms, and brain abnormalities. For the illustrative purpose, I have chosen 10-year life expectancy on this particular graph. So it goes from 1 year to 10 years. So overall, I'm showing 13 years of journey. So each person with the disease and their care partners have unique circumstances. Their journey could be totally different from ours. However, there are many general paths that most persons with the disease and their care partners will travel. All these paths can be depicted in many ways. There are no hard and fast rules. What fits one situation may not fit others. What I am going to review is our journey, what happened to us. So these are the, Cynthia mentioned various phases. So, they may not perfectly align, but these are the phases I went through. Phase 1, the 3 years before her diagnosis, then phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So emotional curve and grieving process. So I'm going to be describing the grieving process here. So prior to Sumi's diagnosis, our relationship was binary and reciprocal. We took care of each other's needs and there was mutual dependency. Our task of running the house were divided into each other's skills and comfort level. With the onset of the disease, everything turned upside down. Our relationship in most situations became unidirectional and non-reciprocal. My love for Sumi became more intentional. It is not easy to naturally love when under a lot of stress and pushed into frustrating situations. And in some demanding situations, reflexes could take over. So in the pre-diagnosis phase, I was mostly in the denial that nothing is wrong with Sumi. At the same time, I was angry as Sumi was not able to perform simple tasks. So what I call emotional curve and care partnering curve. So the illustration on the left shows emotional curve in red color and care partnering curve in the blue color. They occurred while taking care of Sumi. These curves are starting at -3 years with Sumi when Sumi first began to show the symptoms. The vertical axis has no scale but shows the relative magnitude of emotions experienced by the care partner, that is me. So in the phase 2, I was in continuous denial with the hope that the neurologist may have misdiagnosed disease at Alzheimer versus mild cognitive impairment. During this phase, I was mostly in grief and guilt. Guilt in that through all our lives, Sumi was such a good wife to me, and I could have been better husband to her. The emotional curve was at its peak just after the diagnosis, right here. Now, care partnering understanding. So a diagram of the second curve is about the strategies and tactics employed by me as care partner to take care of Sumi's future needs. This curve tended to go up steadily as I gained experience and knowledge. Over time, I learned that effective caregiving comes from love, mercy, compassion, and patience. Moving forward, emotional acceptance and management curve. As I said earlier, I got educated on the disease by reading many books. I started to reflect about our situation. Emotional acceptance and management meant recognizing that Sumi is slowly changing in front of me, and sooner or later it becomes incumbent upon me to change myself as well. I learned to differentiate between the real and the anticipatory grief. The emotional curve is not smooth. It has episodes of sudden spikes. And this happened about 3 years ago when Sumi was walking in the Rochester Park and she rolled her foot and fractured her ankle. And the 10 weeks that followed her accident, they were extremely difficult. And there were huge spikes in my emotions and her well-being as well. After the peak, the emotional curve decreased as I gained more knowledge and confidence, and it helped control my grief. So here now, emotional acceptance and management, it comes with less grief. My focus shifted to care partnering knowledge, creative problem solving, and confidence with less anger and less grief. And again, as the blue curve is going up, the red curve is going down. So like Cynthia mentioned, and I have experienced this myself, this emotional acceptance is a non-linear, is a cyclical process. I think that I am at an acceptance level, but there are many times I have cried in solitude, something triggers. I could be sitting in a car in a parking lot and something I may remember, and the tear comes to my eyes. Or sometimes somebody calls and you remember the past and you go into some type of grief. So this is a cyclical process, but more or less I stay at the acceptance level. Now, this is 8.5 years, this is today, and I'm showing the future as a dotted line, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later on. So going back to the emotional curve, entering into the 4th year, the curve started to flatten out as I gained experience and knowledge about the disease by extensive reading. differentiating disease versus non-disease Sumi. When she is really angry, I know that is a, not the real Sumi, and when she's smiling, I know that is a real Sumi. So keeping my mindfulness and seeing the situation and making sure that it is a disease Sumi I'm facing or non-disease Sumi. I attended support groups. I attended classes offered by Area Agency on Aging 1B, and these were the classes called Powerful Tools for Caregivers. And I learned quite a bit. I attend classes offered by BBAC, which is Birmingham Bloomfield Art Center, and these are bi-weekly art classes. And when we go into the art classes, you totally immerse into those classes and you forget temporarily about your caregiving chores. And I have built a caregiving team around my caregivers, my wife's primary care physicians, our friends, and some of the family members. And the wisdom was gained by contemplation, understanding the impermanence in nature. Everything decays, everything has an end. So once you come to that realization, you tend to understand the situation a little bit better. Mindfulness, learning to live in the present, learning to know as things are happening, knowing what happens to me. So that awareness is very important. Finding a sense of equanimity and proportion. So proportion being not to dwell on things which I have no control over. And writing and sharing my experience. As I said earlier, I write a blog and I have a website. So that is very therapeutic to me. A curve of care partnering knowledge and creative problem solving and confidence. So again, I'm going to talk about the blue curve. This range from arranging for caregivers to take care of Sumi's daily chores like toileting, bathing, dressing, and feeding. It also included taking care of the legal, financial, and medical matters. And some of the creative problem solutions were installing cameras in the house to monitor Sumi's movement. Many times person with the disease, they may wander up the house or they go into the rooms where they're not supposed to be. So this way you can monitor them. Installing a motion sensor alarm in the bedroom. So when Sumi tries to get out of the bed, I am alerted to or awakened to tend to her needs. More problem solving example. I covered all the mirrors and reflective surfaces in our home to avoid the confusion that comes when Sumi looks into them. I changed the carpet in bedroom to hardwood floor, so the toilet accidents are easier to clean and reduce my anger and frustrations. And putting soft pads on any surface that Sumi could bump into. So now here are some of the examples I'm showing with the photographs. The one on the left is that we built a garage ramp going from garage into the house, which is much easier for Sumi to navigate coming in and out of the car into the house. At one time, she used to eat by herself, which she does not eat anymore. We have to feed her. But when she was eating by herself, she had difficulty keeping the plate on the table. It would slide or move. So I found anti-skid mat made by the company called Dyson. And once you put any object on that, it doesn't slip. So that worked very effectively at that time. This one was a big issue, and this particular solution, helps us every day. There is a shower knob shown on the left side, and when we were giving shower to Sumi, the knob would turn left or right, creating hot or cold water accidentally. So I was trying to figure out how to avoid this problem. So what I did was I bought a 4-inch PVC coupling from Home Depot, and it was a $10 solution which I glued over the shower knob, and that solved the problem. And another ramp I built was from going from the hardwood floor, which is the foyer area, into the living room area, into the family area, which is a sunken. And I built the ramp so Sumi can navigate much easier. Another solution which works even today is she had very difficulty standing in the shower. She would, sometime while giving shower, she would just sit down in the shower stall, very dangerous. So I looked into the solution and found this the chair made by the company called Platinum. It's a swivel and slide chair. So in this first photograph, the chair is positioned in such a way that from the outside the shower stall, Sumi can sit in the chair. We can belt her with the seat belt. Then we rotate the chair 90 degrees, and then the chair would slide into the shower stall about 20 inches. So this way, she doesn't have, we don't have to move her. She can sit and we can give her shower. So this is a big blessing to us. Another thing, another solution, as this disease progresses, falls are very common and they could be very serious. So as a safeguard, sometimes I put wearable safety gears on Sumi. On her head, this one is a padded cap, and I got online, and these caps are worn by the LaCroix goalies. And if it works for those goalies, it will work for Sumi. And the hip protector are the ones they've worn by the motorcyclist, and I got those. So now when I feel that the day she's not able to walk well or something, or there is a chance of her falling, we put these gears on her. And this problem solving aspect of being care partner gives me small victories. As I test my solution, it creates a safer and more comfortable environment for Sumi. I consider my problem solving efforts and rigging up items for Sumi's well-being a form of self-care, as it temporarily takes my mind away from the caregiving chores. So emotional curve and the care partnering curve. So for most emotionally inclined care partner, the area under the emotional curve will be larger. So for example, in my case, again, this is not a scientific curve, but I believe my stress was very high here, and I was able to manage and lower it and keep lower. And that happened because I was able to employ some of the caregiving knowledge, experience, and the problem solving ideas. Now, in some cases, I've known some caregivers, they are continuously in denial or anger or frustration. So this curve tend to extend much further into the right side, and they may not be employing all these blue techniques which one should be employing. So everybody's curve is different, but the idea is to make this curve as flattened and as lower as possible, and make this as bigger and as higher as possible. Now coming back to those dotted lines. So this is the unknown future. In the final stage, the brain functions could deteriorate so much that it fails to instruct the mouth to chew and swallow, which results in more complications and deterioration in health. This will cause heightened emotional distress for the person with the disease and care partner, as the ultimate demise of the person with the disease becomes a reality. Knowing all this, I could be prepared, but I know that one is never prepared for this tragic moment. And the sad reality is Alzheimer always wins. Closing thoughts. I consider myself fortunate that I'm in good physical, mental, emotional, and financial state, that I and her caregivers can provide one-on-one, person-centered care to Sumi in our home. The hardest part of caregiving is that it is a lonely journey, in spite of getting tremendous support from family and friends. It can feel that all dreams and hopes are on pause. Sometimes I feel as though I am on cliff's edge, but with steadfastness, I amaze myself that I have scaled a new height in caregiving. What I thought was a cliff is just another plateau, a new normal. And we all know what new normal is in during the COVID days. Changes in Sumi have precipitated changes in me and opened up new internal vistas. Sumi gives purpose, clarity, and focus to my life. I strive to become a better person and husband by being more loving, caring, compassionate, and patient, by maintaining emotional equanimity and mindfulness. I'm able to recognize the important things and let go of the trivial. I try to control the controllable and manage the uncontrollable. My anxiety, stress, and the blood pressure have been reduced, thereby improving my well being. I find that I'm compassionate, self healed, little wiser, and at peace with myself. My two sumis and my two worlds. So before the disease, my first sumi, or I call sumi 1.0. And after the disease, my second sumi, or sumi 2.0. So living in the two worlds of the same person, sumi 1.0 and sumi 2.0, is extremely difficult. The reality is that both these worlds coexist simultaneously, like two banks of the same river, sumi 1.0 and sumi 2.0 on each bank. I can't lock up the former world, the world with my first sumi, in the deep recesses of my mind and forget about it. At the same time, I can't ignore the current and real world with my second sumi. After a long struggle, I have figured out that my well-being depends on smoothly navigating between these two worlds with a balanced mind and not getting overwhelmed by either of them. It is like crossing a rickety suspension bridge over a turbulent river. When I'm not sure I want to get to the other side to visit Sumi 1.0, but with a determined resolve, I do cross it and navigate between the two banks of the river, all while maintaining my equanimity. The common thread in two worlds is Sumi's smile. Every day I try hard not to let that go. This is Sumi 1.0 in 1974, 2 weeks after our marriage. And this is Sumi now. In our journey, I have realized that grief is not the process of forgetting or suppressing the memories of Sumi in the deep recesses of my mind, but remembering those memories at will on special occasions with less pain. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Excellent job. That's a very, very commendable what you've done for Sumi.